Bring the screen. No. Okay. So, your topic, boys and girls, please listen.
Yeah, Josh, listen.
Okay. Your topic is the tutorial process. Your essential question are what are the steps involved in the tutorial process. If you think I'm going too fast, this will be posted on Google Classroom. Okay? So you should be doing it right now. I don't know. Alright, this is something that I probably wouldn't write down. I am just explaining to you the purpose behind our notes today. So when you take notes, you don't have to write everything on the slide word for word. You should write the things that you find important, or the things that you might forget, or the things that you think might be on a test, the things that you're probably going to want to study. But it won't have to be absolutely everything the teacher says, or absolutely everything that's on the slide. So the purpose of going through tutorials again is that when I first introduced them to you, we did the majority of it, but we're still not filling out the TRFs on our own. We're still not following the structure super, super close because it was all new to you guys. And I want to refine the tutorial process, make sure tutorials are being done correctly, make sure they're being done better than we are currently doing them, because we are kind of skipping over some steps. Okay? So, step 1, before the tutorial, students take Cornell notes in their academic classes. So if I were writing my notes, instead of writing step 1, I would just write a big number 1. Maybe right before the tutorial. I think you could figure it out that this is happening before the tutorial. But I would also write that students take Cornell notes in their academic classes. Yes, Melanie? Not right now. Alright, it looks like slant. Remember slant? You sit up, listen, ask questions, note-taking, and talk to your teacher. It sounds like listening to your teacher, asking questions for clarification. But you're not distracted, you're not talking to your friends, you're focused, all of your attention is on whatever notes you're taking. And why do we take notes in our classes? Because we want to learn, we want to make sure we have the appropriate material to study for our tests, we want to make sure we have notes to reference if you have questions while you're doing your homework. So teachers give you notes so that you can be prepared with that material later. And notes come in different forms. Sometimes they're guided notes where you fill in the blanks. Sometimes it's like what we do in this class where you have to write everything on your own. And that's what things will be like later in life, in high school, especially in college. And when you take notes in class, you shouldn't just take them and throw them away, or take them and put them in your binder and never look at them. You should always reference back to them, because that's where all the information is that you've been learning. So your notes are there to help you. If you have a question, and your teacher's not helping you, your teacher has other kids who have lots of questions, the answer is probably in your notes. So you should always go back to your notes and look for the answer. If it's not in your notes, there's a good question for a TRF. Alright, step 2, still before the tutorial. So just write a big 2. You don't have to rewrite before the tutorial. We want to make sure we complete the pre-work inquiry on the TRFs while reviewing Cornell notes, completing homework, or studying for a quiz or test. Your tutorials are intended to help you prepare for your test, to help you fully understand the material. Not really as a review after you take your test, but if that's the only thing you have a question on, you could go back and look at old tests. Melanie? It looks like reviewing your notes, reading, completing your homework, studying. Sounds like you're probably silently reading or studying the material. You need to use your notes or homework while you're studying so you can figure out what it is that you do not understand before you take a test. It is much better to study appropriately and prepare for your test the first time than to take a test and fail it and feel bad about yourself and then study again and then have to stay after school and retake your test because you couldn't do well the first time. You're just wasting your own time by not being adequately prepared. And remember, you don't have to write down absolutely everything on this slide. The looks like, sounds like, that's just to help me explain. You don't need to write that stuff down. You should definitely write down the bullet point. That's the official step. If you don't know why we do something, that's something you should write down. But if you could figure out on your own why we do something, that's really not something you want to write down. Alright, step 3. Still, boys, before the tutorial. When you come in the room, you should have your TRF ready. We have been doing them in your tutorial group, and we will continue to do that finishing off this quarter. But starting third quarter, you're going to be responsible for doing a TRF on your own at home without any help from the tutor. So starting in the third quarter, when things get a little more complicated, you're going to have to start doing TRFs on your own. Maybe even sooner than that. Why do we have them done ahead of time, turned in at the beginning of class, so that tutors are prepared to see what kinds of questions the group has? In some AVID classes, the teacher collects all the TRFs and then separates them and says, okay, these 7 people have questions on history, these 7 people have questions on math, these 8 people have questions on science, and I'm going to pull a few kids to help out the English groups. And so every single day your tutorial is different based on what your questions are in. We don't do that in 7th grade because you guys are all pretty much learning the same thing. And it's beneficial just to get the practice. But as your classes get harder, tutorials become a lot more important. Right now we're really just doing a lot of practicing and answering questions when you have them. Ten steps. Alright, step 4. During the tutorial, students are divided into tutorial groups to meet the 7-to-1 student-to-tutor ratio. So in every tutorial group, there should be no more than 7 kids. Melanie, would you like to move your seat or would you like to pay attention to the bar? Thank you. When we sit in tutorial groups, we should be in a horseshoe, which is why our desks are now on tables. When Mr. Kinney came to visit, he was very concerned that I had you guys sitting in rows. So I moved to tables so we can all be facing each other. Who's that guy who was here a few weeks ago?
So are you teaching?
Yeah, he just like sat in the back, came and watched the tutorials.
Oh, I thought he was
No, he's a very important person.
he's your boss, right?
No, he's more of my helper.
He's your helper.
Alright, why do we sit in a horseshoe? To make sure we can all look at each other, because a tutorial is supposed to be a conversation. It's not the person standing at the board teaching you guys. It's not you guys teaching the person at the board. It's a conversation where questions are being asked and answered. And horseshoes or circles foster that collaboration. And we stick with the 7-to-1 student-to-tutor ratio because that makes sure it stays small. So that's why there are 28 kids in an AVID class, so that we can have 4 tutors.
Oh,
ya sabía yo.
Wait.
oh my god. Hey.
Ran out of room?
Oh. Okay.
I think I had more for you somewhere.
Alright, continuing with our time during the tutorial.
I don't like those.
Okay. What we haven't been doing and we need to start doing is called a 30-second speech. We need to start doing 30-second speech.
It's just like I can't read out. Look, I saw mistakes. Shut up. Ew, why are you laughing like that?
Alright, and this is what your 30-second speech looks like. You'll have this card. I made these nice little stacks of cards for you guys so everyone can follow along. You would say, my point of confusion is blank. So you're not reading your entire TRF. You're just sharing your point of confusion. And we should be starting with every person in the group sharing their point of confusion. Okay, that's how we should be starting. And then the presenter, whoever's chosen to present, says, my point of confusion is whatever it is. I know that blank. You share your vocabulary, words, and definitions. It says that on here. What I already know about my question is that. And you share what research you did ahead of time. This is what I've tried. So say how you tried to solve the problem. The point where I get stuck is, point out where you're confused, and then state your point of confusion again. So it should only take 30 seconds. You're just reading key features of your TRF in this nice frame. We do this for order, so everyone knows where we are, so make sure we're hitting all of the important parts of your POC for your TRF. Melody?
Yes.
Alright, then we make sure that the tutor or the group members are asking questions. And then so the first thing is the presenter reads their 30-second speech. They tell you what their question is and what they've already tried. And then we can start asking them questions. We don't point out the obvious, we don't just answer their question for them. We ask them questions because when you figure out something on your own, you're way more likely to remember it. So, there are level 1 questions that you could ask them, such as, what do you know about your problem? Which should have been answered in a 30-second speech, someone. What did you record in your notes? So that helps them to realize they should be going back to their notes and looking at things. What is a formula or trick your teacher told you to remember the steps? So if you remember your teacher telling you a trick, you can help jog their memory in asking if they remember a formula. We have level 2 questions that could be helpful. How can you organize the information? Can you find a similar problem? Use as an example in the text for your notes. Some level 3 tutorial questions. Is there more than one way to solve the problem? Could there be more than one answer? Can you share the information another way? Can you use this in real life? And some just general questions. How did you know what to do first? This looks like, or this reminds me of. Give me an example of. Is your answer reasonable? What method would you use? So on any single question, if you're stuck or your group is stuck and you're not really sure what you should be doing, I now have questions. You just pull this out, take a question, and ask it, and it might help the presenter learn something. Okay? And still in step 5, while the presenter is presenting, everyone else is taking 3-column notes, which is regular notes on a piece of paper, and the tutor is taking notes for the presenter. We take our notes so we can remember what we learned. Maybe we'll have the same question later, and we can go back to those can look at the notes to jog your memory to help the presenter. The 3-column notes are similar to the notes we take, but in one column is the point of confusion, and the next column is the notes that you take on your tutorial, and the next one has the steps that the presenter is doing. No, we'll still take notes our normal way. The only difference is your point of confusion goes at the top, and then you take notes underneath. You still write down the steps and stuff.
So it's just a different format. This is the official AVID way that I got from online, but it's okay.
Alright, step 6, group members or tutors check for understanding as the student presenter reviews the work and articulates the steps. So at the end of the tutorial, when we ask the presenter if they understand their POC and they review their steps, the tutors have been doing a good job doing that with you. We do that to make sure the presenter really understands, or if they're just kind of writing down things because you're telling them to. So the presenter would be summarizing their POC and the solution for the group members, sharing the steps that they took to solve the problem, and if you think that the presenter's not really making sense, you could give them some clarifying questions. Alright, we're almost done. Alright, step 7 is just to repeat step 5 and 6. So we continue to do this so as many people who can get help are able to get help during the tutorial process. So a lot of the times we can only get through one person because we're still learning, we're going slow, we're trying to figure things out. So you should be able to get through like at least 3 people during your tutorial time. I know, we can barely get through one because we're still learning. You should be able to get through more than that. So this is just saying it repeats. After the tutorial, on the back of your TRF, we do a reflection. I've been giving you guys extra reflections because we've been using the same tutorials for like 2 weeks. But when we start doing our own tutorials at home without the tutor's help, you'll do the same reflection every day. Reflections are good because they help you process your learning. Helps you summarize and synthesize what you've learned about. Good stuff. Repeat steps 5 and 6.
These are just like the official AVID steps. Only in common. Okay, again, you guys don't have to write all this stuff down. If you just write step 8, reflect, that's a nice summary of what you're supposed to do. You don't have to write everything word for word. These are your notes, though. If you find everything written down to be helpful, then write everything down. Alright, step 9. After the tutorial, the tutor takes your TRF and they grade them. So you have feedback, so you know what you're doing right and you know what you're doing wrong. They also grade you on your participation.
So can you just put down graded?
Yeah, step 9. TRF is graded. Yeah, in your tutorial group, you're graded on participation. You're graded on whether or not you have your resources and your notes available. And you're graded on your reflection.
5 minutes. Alright, and step 10, last one. Stay with me. After the tutorial, we should be debriefing as a class, which we haven't been doing. So after the tutorial, when we all come back together, we should be sharing what we learned about in our tutorial, what went well, what didn't go well. Just because we are a whole class, we are a family, we want to know what other people have been learning about and doing and what's been going well in other classes. I'm not in both rooms at the same time, so it would be helpful for me to know how things are going wherever I'm not. And then when you go back to your academic classes, you should be using what you learned in your tutorial. You should be the one who can help the other students in the class because you have a greater understanding of what you've been learning about through the tutorial process. You could also use this process in another class. If someone in your class is like, hey Melanie, I don't know how to do this, can you help me? You would be like, sure, let me help you. But you wouldn't give them your paper to copy. You would ask them questions and guide them through the steps to learn on their own. Giving your friends your paper to copy is not helping anyone. Alright, so again, this note will be collected at the beginning of class on Thursday and graded. So you want to make sure you write down questions in the left-hand column. You write down a summary at the end. You highlight any key terms. You can underline each step. Yes, Verity. What would be a question? So like if I started with step 1 and I wanted to write a question on the side, on the left-hand side, I would say, why do I take notes in class? You should have like at least 5 questions on the side. Step 2. What is the most important thing when completing a TRF? Okay? Alright, I'll put this on Google Classroom for you guys.